Hi everybody, I'm Leah of seejanedrill, and if you've got a hole in a plaster wall or a plaster ceiling, I'm going to show you today how to use drywall to make that repair. Let's get started. Okay, so here we are at a plaster wall. It's a lot more solid than a drywall. Now, what makes it different or tricky is plaster is always thicker than drywall. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a little slice. We're going to lay it next to a piece of drywall, and then you'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so what we have here, this is the piece of plaster that I cut out of the wall, and this over here is a piece of drywall. And as you can see, the plaster and the drywall are different thicknesses, and that's why it's so tricky to repair a plaster wall with a piece of drywall. So drywall is manufactured, so it's always the same. It doesn't matter if you take a measurement right here in the center or you take a measurement down here. The thickness remains consistent throughout the board. But you know what? Plaster is not that way. So plaster is different because the thickness varies. And why is that? Well, because it's applied by hand. And depending upon a few things, like is it gypsum rock underneath the plaster? Is it wooden lath underneath the plaster? Is there a texture like this piece that we sliced out? It has a sand finish on it. So it's those factors that affect the thickness of the plaster. You have to also keep in consideration that plaster is applied by hand. It's not machined, right? So the thickness that you have right here may vary from how thick it is down there, just a matter of a few inches. So what's the solution, right? How do we repair a plaster wall with drywall? Well, we're going to use two techniques here. We're going to sister our studs, and then the other technique is we're going to shim out the studs that we sister, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so I've made my two horizontal lines, okay, across to show me where to make my cut with my saw. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why don't I have lines that are vertical to show me how to square it up? Well, here's the thing. There are studs behind the plaster wall. There's a stud here, there's a stud here, and it's a natural boundary. Now, before you start cutting, you want to make certain that there's no pipes behind here or wires that are going to interfere with you cutting. You don't want to cut through wires. If you have to take a flashlight and look down and make certain, do that. That's my stud there. Now for tight corners like this, sometimes you have to use a keyhole saw. That's what this is, okay? And it's going to give you more flexibility to hit those sharp corners. Okay, so I've squared off my damaged area. And I have a stud over here on this side, and then I have a stud on the opposite side. Now it comes time to sister. Now what is sistering? Well, sistering normally is used to strengthen a damaged 2x4, okay, a stud, or to strengthen a bad joist. We're going to be using sistering to make our repair in this plaster wall. So I've got a piece of scrap 2x4 here, and we're going to take this scrap and we're going to sister it up against the existing 2x4. And we're going to repeat this process on the other side over here. Okay, now to secure the wood to the stud, you can either use a nail or a construction screw, whatever is easiest for you. Now, what I've done is I've already driven the nail partly in, okay? If you're gonna use nails, drive the nail in because it's awkward to hammer inside a wall. So the other thing you wanna do is you wanna toenail that nail out. You want to pitch it out toward you because it's very difficult to pound a nail inside of a wall. I'm just going to nail it in place. So I've got this nail driven. I'm going to repeat the process down here, and then I'm going to add another stud to this side. Okay, that's toe-nailed as well. Okay, so I've got my 2 studs sistered. Now I've cut the piece that I'm going to fit in, okay, the piece of drywall. And I'm going to set that inside our opening, our repair area. Okay, so I've got the piece in. Now, as you can see, it's recessed, right? Okay, so this is where shimming comes in. I've got 2 pieces of cardboard, and I'm going to set that on top of that stud, okay? I'm going to put that piece of cardboard on top of the stud too. So the shimming process is not an exact science, okay? Chances are this is not going to be perfect, so you may have to take additional pieces of cardboard and put it in one corner or another corner, or you may have to use material that's thinner than this cardboard. Might even have to double up on some pieces of paper. You just got to tweak it a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to stick our drywall in, and I'm going to see where I have to make my adjustments, if any. Now, as I can see, I'm nice up at the top, but at the bottom here, I've got a little bit of a lip, so that means I got to kick it out some. I have to tell you, I'm very happy with that. Now I'm going to put a fastener here, a drywall screw, drywall screw, drywall screw, drywall screw. It's going to suck it in a little bit, but that'll be fine. Okay, so I've put a countersinking bit on the end of my drill. Okay, so I've got my 3 in, right? And as you can see, it's right flush. Now we get down to this last corner, see how it's riding out? So there's the appearance that it's not going to work. But you got to remember that cardboard compresses. So as I screw in this corner, it's going to suck it up. It's going to be nice and flat. And there we go. Perfect. So the job is done. We sistered those studs beneath and shimmed them out so that the drywall rides perfectly with the existing wall. All we got to do is mud it in. Now, if you've got a smooth surface, that's going to be easy. Our surface here has what's called a sand finish. So depending upon what kind of surface you're working with, you either just mud it or put your design in. This is Leah saying, you can do this. See you next time.